All right, guys. So for concept two, we're going to talk about adenosine triphosphate. And this you might recognize as ATP, which comes from the mitochondria. It's a kind of energy helper in your cells. So we're going to talk more about what it does and why it's so important. So as a little bit of background, your body needs energy in order to run your cells, and your body doesn't directly use your food for this energy. It needs the macromolecules that are in your food, but really what it needs is it needs to break all the bonds in those macromolecules. So we talked about in the last concept, when you are forming bonds and breaking bonds, you're dealing with energy being absorbed or released. And when you break chemical bonds, the energy is, you have to absorb energy. And when you form chemical bonds, you release energy. So in order to convert this energy into a form your body can use, you have to deal with breaking and forming bonds. Once energy is converted into a usable form, we use ATP to help direct it towards a way your cells can use it. So ATP is an energy carrying molecule that carries and stores energy for cells' functions. It is the main energy currency for the cell. So we need to know the structure of ATP. I'm going to move this out of the way. So we have adenine, which is here in green. It is a nitrogen base, and it is attached to a ribose, which is just a sugar ring. And notice that ends in OSE, like glucose and fructose, so we know it's a sugar. And then it has three phosphate groups, which are held together with high energy bonds. So each of these little four crosses here are phosphate groups, and they're going to kind of be the things that are broken and brought back in order to help give us energy. So let's look at how that happens. Let's move this over here. So a lot of energy is stored in the bonds between these last two phosphates, and energy is released when a phosphate group is removed and added to another molecule. So when it's added to the other molecule, remember, forming bonds releases energy. So when it adds to another molecule, we release energy. We also have something called ADP, which so this is adenosine triphosphate. ADP is adenosine diphosphate. So there's only two phosphoruses or phosphate groups. ADP becomes ATP when a phosphate group is added. So let's look at all of these labeled together. So when ATP removes the phosphate, energy is released. But when you have the two phosphates attached to adenosine, you can add a phosphate and energy is added from broken down food. So in this process, energy is absorbed from the environment and your ADP is recycled. So, in summary, when ATP is broken down, it releases energy for the cell to use. It becomes ADP and a phosphate. So, you can kind of represent it by this reaction. ATP breaks down to make ADP and a phosphate and energy. Because more energy is given off than required, this is an exothermic reaction. And then to do the reverse, to make ATP, cells must join together ADP and a phosphate and energy from your food, and we make ATP. And because this is a reaction where energy is taken in, this is an endothermic reaction. And this process is also a part of cellular respiration, but we'll learn about that more in concept number 5. So, just as a reminder, where does the energy come from in our food? Remember, it comes from your carbon-based molecules, all your macromolecules. So those don't go away. They're still there. Carbohydrates are our first source of energy. It's most commonly broken down for ATP. And this is kind of relative amounts of ATP we get from one glucose molecule. And then fats will be broken down after carbs, and proteins are the least likely to be broken down, but they still can get some energy. And remember, we never break down nucleic acids because those are your DNA. So if you are wondering where those are on this list, we don't break them down for energy. So that's where we get the energy for ATP. All right. Thanks, guys.